Hey y'all, what a delight to be here. With your permission, I'd like to start with a poem from one of the world's great rascal poets, Hafiz. This one's called A Hunting Party. A hunting party sometimes has a greater chance of flushing love and God out into the open than a warrior all alone. A hunting party has a greater chance of flushing love and God into the open than a hunter all alone. Thank you, Hafiz. Yeah, well, so on a beautiful day like this, it's easy to forget what challenging times we live in. It seems that humanity is kind of like having a bit of a struggle right now with living within its limits, with understanding and regulating our collective behavior to accommodate the ecological and planetary limits that we all face. This is pretty challenging. I spend a lot of time thinking about this, and um, trying to address the question of what do we do? What do we do about this situation that we find ourselves in the early 21st century? How do we guide our people and this earth through these times? What is the way forward? You know, it seems so challenging and often disempowering to hear the news and not feel like you can make a difference in the world. Well, I think that there are some things that we can do. And basically, I think that there's a couple of strategies that I really believe in. One is lean heavy on biology, lean heavy on art. And basically, what's really called for is we see the decline of the natural systems around us in many places, is basically what I would call a couple of different things. One, nurture life. Nurture life in all its forms. Human life, plant life, animal life, the life of the forest, the life of the oceans. Nurture life. Cultivate abundance. You know, this is one of the great things about the natural world is we've got photosynthesis. Plants want to grow. Plants give us, greater levels of abundance just through their cultivation. And sometimes just knowing when to leave them alone and let them do their thing will also do that. And, focus on loving this tattered world back to life, reweaving this web that has so often been rent asunder. I think there's a movement underway right now that is going on that I'd really like to talk about a bit. It's what I call the neo-horticultural revival. And the neo-horticultural revival, in my opinion, being a horticulturalist for a lifetime, seems like it's one of the best ways that we can really hope to restore abundance and health to our planet. And it's going on around us all the time. I also call it garden culture emerging. And what does it look like? Well, it looks like the True Nature Country Fair. It looks like the emergence of urban farms and urban agriculture, the growth of community gardens, the growth among our young people of training and skill building and primitive skills, the education and how to grow things again, how to reconnect to the natural world. The whole permaculture movement is part of that what I would call a neo-horticultural revival. We're literally growing ourselves home again. And we're doing that by creating a new old culture of what I would call earthly practices. So this is really, really exciting. These are exciting times. In the face of all the challenges that we have, I see people in every situation around the world doing their best, giving their heart to supporting their communities, restoring the people and the landscapes to health and abundance. So this is the neo-horticultural revival. This is not something new, even though our manifestation is new. This has been going on for a long, long time, this horticultural revival in horticultural cultures. I'd like to kind of take an anthropologist perspective on human cultural evolution. And all of y'all are pretty much familiar with the general process as it seems to be explained in our world. It started with the foragers, the hunter-gatherers. 40, 60,000, 90,000 years ago, humanity roamed across the landscape, gathering, its sustenance and its shelter from every corner, actually in incredibly ecologically sensitive ways, paying attention to the world that we inhabited and making sure that we lived within the limits of that particular environment. Then there was a phase that hasn't gotten a whole lot of attention. It's hard to find a whole lot about it. After the hunter-gatherers, and actually concurrent with the hunter-gatherers, is this interstitial period of horticultural societies. And horticultural societies were those societies that began when humans first began to settle, when we first began to stop roving the landscape and find a place that we like and settle in there and start growing some of our own food. Agriculture and food production really began in a dump heap. The dump heap outside the tribal fires, where the seeds that we threw over our shoulders began to germinate, and we didn't have to spend the calories to go out and look throughout the landscape to discover the food that we needed to feed ourselves. There it was, right outside the campfire. So we began to settle in, and this was the horticultural society period. It's when, it took about 1 calorie of energy to gather 40 calories of food. And that, is a pretty magical time. If you look at humans' health during those times of the forager, hunter-gatherer societies and the horticultural societies, most of the degenerative illnesses that we see today didn't exist. We had a larger stature. The hunter-gatherer people of Turkey and Greece 20,000 years ago achieved a certain level of height and weight and stature that after agriculture they have never recovered from and returned to the height and the stature, the physical stature that they had at that time. And then for about 3,000 to 5,000 years, these horticultural societies survived and thrived in many places on the planet. Villages were birthed of people that were living and supporting each other in those ways. And then concentration started to happen. Agriculture emerged on the scene. And with agriculture, we found that it was possible to accumulate and hoard materials. It was the first time that was possible. We could accumulate grains in adequate quantities that we could transport them. This is when it became possible to have more than a tribal skirmish and actually exterminate large numbers of people at any one time. It's when we began to compete for land, because agriculture is a force that knows no boundaries. It will eat land forever, and the costs are externalized onto other people and those kind of things. And then industrial culture arose out of our agricultural cultures, and this is basically just an additional layer on top of an agricultural culture, and it just in agriculture became more industrialized. The results of it became more externalized. The caloric intake of people went down. To today, industrial agriculture takes 4 to 12 calories of energy to produce 1 calorie of food. If there was ever a lesson to be learned about what is not sustainable, those thermodynamic calculations really say it all. So these horticultural societies have been very important and almost forgotten. When I was going through and learning about human cultural evolution, they didn't say anything about horticultural societies. Oh, those people, they were just kind of living in small villages and tending to their own needs and living within their limits, those kind of things. That wasn't all that significant. Agriculture and industry, that's when things got interesting. The truth is, we've deluded ourselves about this, and we bought into a lie that we've been told by historians for quite a long time that makes us not see the high level of advancement that actually existed in a garden-based culture. So horticultural societies didn't just fade away when agriculture came in. Horticultural societies have continued to exist ever since, alongside industrial culture, alongside agricultural societies, but you don't hear much about them because they're not out there tooting their horn. They're just out there living their lives. And you see them everywhere. If anybody's done any travel in the two-thirds world, you've seen either intact or not too far removed from high levels of functionality these horticultural societies. I was on the island of Dominica recently, and they had a functioning horticultural society based on harvesting fish from the sea, growing gardens, and then gathering from the forest of the island whatever else they needed. And that's an island that until the 30s, that was pretty much the way people lived. And one of the things that went along with that is they have the greatest number of centenarians per capita in the world. And these were people that lived a horticultural society or a garden culture life. Some hunter-gathering, some foraging, some animal care and husbandry in association with, gardening, and gardening not just annuals but also perennial plants as well. So let's follow this message on down a little bit farther. The Mayan people, just very briefly. The history of the Mayans was they started out as a village culture, gardeners. They adopted agriculture. Their civilization grew. They built edifices to the priest class, and then their agriculture couldn't support their population, and that concentration of power and wealth in a few hands, it collapsed. I've been to the Yucatan. The Mayans didn't disappear. The Mayan people are still there throughout Central America and the Yucatan of Mexico. What happened was the civilization collapsed and the people went back to the woods, back to their gardens, back to their villages, where they've been quite happily living ever since. So, this is one of the good pieces of news. There is life after agriculture. There is life after industrial civilization. So these are the things that we need to know and understand. Another story more recently, the Soviet Union. Well, Stalin in the 30s did everything he could to wipe out small farmers and rural culture. And what he did during that time was basically kill off millions of small farmers and institute a state-run industrial agriculture system. It never worked all that well, so people kept growing gardens to keep themselves fed because there still wasn't food in the stores. You look on a little bit farther and you see that that when the Soviet Union collapsed in 1992, what happened? They were facing famine and starvation because their agricultural civilization collapsed immediately. So what happened? The people started depending upon their garden. The only thing that avoided collapse among the Soviet Union's peoples and starvation and famine was the home gardens that were being grown. People fed themselves. Gardens saved the people of the Soviet Union from starvation. Very important to understand. Taking it on into modern times, even more modern. Detroit, 2012. What do we see? This is the wasteland of industrial culture. People abandoned by industry, culture destroyed, health declining, culture declining. All those things were going on in Detroit. And what happened? The Garden Angels came in. Southern African Americans that taught their people how to grow food again. Today in Detroit, there are 1,200 community gardens. More community gardens per capita and per square mile than anywhere else in the United States. and that's not counting all the home gardens and all the side lots that are turned into gardens, all the orchards that are planted and everything. So out of the ashes of industrial civilization has risen a culture that's restoring itself to health, that's feeding itself, that's becoming more, that's paying attention to nutrition, and a culture is getting stronger all the time in Detroit. They are the model for the future. So what can we do? Well, a few things. We can basically engage ourselves en masse in the creation of landscapes and communities of abundance where we live. This is something that we can do. A geometric progression is possible. We can do this, and we can do it relatively quickly. We can support those people that are already at work doing it. Start a community garden, join a community garden, join a local food movement. You know, there are people that are out there doing it. We need more feet on the ground, more hands in the soil, more people that are dedicating their lives to the restoration of abundance in our times. So help those people that are already at it. Vote with your dollars, vote with your time, vote with your love, vote with your sweat. And trust nature to restore abundance. It happens, it's happened, and it will happen again. So, you know, we can take another model from the natural world, the virus. What does the virus do? It inhabits a host cell, it multiplies, it explodes the host cell, and spreads itself out. And before long, you've got this geometric progression that, you know, basically allows that to spread itself around. We need to look to the natural world for the models that we're going to take on in doing this work. So go viral. Go spread ourselves out. Take this revival out there into the world. This is what we're here to do. And it's never too late. Begin today. Begin this weekend. Begin again now. Thank you so much.